Hi, in this video we are going to discuss how to build a RESTful web service using Spring. So our objective will be to build a RESTful web service that will handle HTTP GET request at HTTP localhost :8080 get data. So the web service should handle this get data request, and it's going to respond with a JSON representation of a data object. So it's going to return something like this, ID and content. And so for this, we are going to create a Maven project in Eclipse. And in the POM XML, we are going to specify the Spring dependency, because this is going to be a Spring RESTful web service. We will be creating a REST controller, a Spring REST controller. We'll also need to create a data object that will be returned by the REST controller, and this data object is actually converted by Spring into JSON, and that is what is going to be the response. It's going to be a JSON response. So let's get started by creating a Maven project in Eclipse. So for this, we can click on File, New, Other, and if you have the M2 Maven M2 Eclipse plugin, then you should see Maven, and then from there you can choose Maven project. So this will create a blank Maven project. Actually, I already did that, so I'm going to cancel from here. And so this is my Maven project that I created earlier. So it's a Spring RESTful web service. That's the name of the project. And this is my POM XML. Because this is a very simple project, so all I have here is the Spring dependencies, so that it will automatically, Maven will get the Spring artifacts that's going to be needed by this project. So next we'll look at the RESTful controller, which will handle the GET request. So this is the REST controller that I created. I called it REST test controller. It's a very simple controller, but it has the main things that are needed for a RESTful controller, and one of them is this annotation REST controller. So this indicates that this is a RESTful controller. The difference between a RESTful controller and a traditional MVC controller is that a traditional controller returns a view, whereas a RESTful controller is going to return a data object, which is actually converted into JSON by Spring automatically using the Jackson jar. So as you see here, this controller is going to handle this get data request, and we use the request mapping annotation to define the request that it's going to handle. Next, we have this request param annotation. What this is doing is it's telling that it's going to handle the query string parameter ID, and that's mapped to the ID parameter in this method get data. So whatever ID comes in through the request query string will automatically get populated in this parameter ID so that it's available within the method. Now this is a very simple method. All it's doing is, using the ID, it's trying to get data from this data list, and so the data list is populated with some values, and depending on the ID, 0, 1, 2, or 3, it's going to get the corresponding value from the list, and then simply it's going to create this data object which has, which takes ID and the value in its constructor. So let's take a quick look. So it's very simple object. It has two properties, ID and value. This object can be created with using those two things, ID and value, and that is what this controller is doing. It's creating the data object, and it returns back that data objects. So this is where REST controller is different from a traditional controller. As I was saying earlier, it doesn't return a view. Instead, it returns a data object which is automatically converted by Spring into JSON. So this is all, which is mainly needed in a RESTful controller if you develop it using Spring. So this is a very simple example. And now, in order to run and test this controller, I have a simple application class here with a good old main method, and all it does is it's going to use Spring application and to run this thing. So what it's going to do is it's going to start an embedded Tomcat servlet container. That's what the Spring application does, and it will run the RESTful controller within it. And the way it works is, as you can see, we have the component scan here. So it's going to scan for all components within the class path, and that is how it's going to find the REST controller, because it, as you saw, it has the @REST controller annotation, which is a component. So it's going to find this controller. So that's what the component scan is doing. And this other annotation, enable auto configuration, what it does is it's going to auto configure the Spring dispatcher servlet so that it can automatically run within the Tomcat servlet controller. So this is a very easy way of testing the application without even having to start a Tomcat. So let's try to run this application. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to right click on this and simply run it as a Java application. So what it will do is it will start a process which has the embedded Tomcat servlet container within it. So once this has started, we can go to any browser window and run the application from there. So for example, I can just simply go here and type localhost, and I can say get data, and if I pass the ID, then it should return me, yeah, as you can see, it returned me ID is 0, and the value is Spring, which is the first data from this list. And same way, if I do 1 or 2, I should get the subsequent values. So I'm going to go back here and pass 1, so then I get the second value, rest, and if I do 2, it's going to return me the last value, which is src. So the idea is this get data request is handled by the RESTful controller, and it's returning this JSON object, and that's what is being done by this REST controller. To summarize, the key things here are this at REST controller annotation. That's the main thing you need, and the next thing is at request mapping, which tells which get request it's going to handle. Of course, this can be you can have, this is a very simple example, but it can handle more complex post and get request with multi parameters. But in this case, we are just having one parameter ID, and it's creating the data object, which is converted automatically by Spring using Jackson. So that's it. This was a very simple example of a Spring-based RESTful controller. Hope you like it. Thank you.